There's so many cooking oils to choose from, and it can be a bit stressful trying to figure out which one will work for your recipe and the health benefits of each. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you guys a quick guide to cooking oils, and we're going to go over the basics that you need for everyday cooking. Let's dive in. Okay, so up front, there's a lot of different fats that you can use to cook your food. This video is going to primarily focus on vegetable oils, and we're not really going to be talking about lards or animal fats or even butter. And I feel like, especially here in the United States where we do have a problem with obesity, I did want to also go over the health benefits of each oil and some of the cons that may or may not affect you. For example, coconut oil, olive oil, sesame seed oil, canola oil, sunflower seed oil, grape seed oil, the common stuff that you would find in the grocery store. And in this video, I really want to lay out the pros and cons of each, what they're really good for, what they're not so good for, and I also wanted to give you guys just a general rule of thumb for cooking oils and what you can and cannot use for specific scenarios when you're preparing your meals. And then we'll also talk about storage and some beginner or first time mistakes that people make. And at the end of the video, I'll share with you guys my favorite cooking oils and why I specifically use them. So with that being said, let's talk about some cooking oils. Okay, so now what are some common things that you should really look out for when you do buy your oils? Not all cooking oils or cooking fats are created equally. For example, you might find some cooking oils that are labeled as health conscious or even organic when they're totally not. Things you should look out for is when they induce artificial vitamins or artificial ingredients. And generally speaking, you really do want to avoid bleaching. There's a lot of oils out there that go through a synthetic process, and they're typically bleached to raise their smoking point or to just, in general, enhance their features. You really do want to kind of concentrate on natural oils that are extracted or chemically processed and driven through actual vegetables and are made organically. So for example, olive oil or avocado oil or sunflower seed oil, things like that. Try to avoid things that were artificially combined or made, and then they're being labeled to you as synthetic healthy choice, which typically means that they're over processed. So with that being said, there's really two categories to really worry about when you are choosing your cooking oils or your cooking fat. And what it really boils down to, especially for a healthy diet, is the comparison between mono unsaturated fats and saturated fats. Unsaturated fat content is generally really good for you, whereas saturated fats can eventually degrade your health over time. I'm not going to stand here and tell you guys that there's a specific oil that's perfect and it's really healthy and it's all pros and no cons. There's no such thing. Every single cooking oil has their specific pros and cons, whether that may be it's really healthy for your heart, or it's loaded in antioxidants, or it might be really healthy but really high in calories. So you really do have to kind of weigh out the pros and cons and specifically what's good for your scenario. So for example, some oils are really good for the heart, and if you have a heart condition and you're really trying to keep your cholesterol down and your blood pressure down, you should really reach for that specific oil. Or you may have a sensitive stomach and you may need an oil that's a little bit more easier to digest. I don't know what your specific situation is, but the point is you need to find that balance, and hopefully this video will help you do that. Okay, so before we move forward, one of the most popular questions that I get asked all the time is, which oil is best for searing? And specifically, what exactly is an oil smoking point? Well, let me go ahead and clear that out of the way right now, because when we get deeper into this video, I'm going to talk a lot about smoking point and searing and sauteing. The best way I can describe smoking point is try to think of it as the limit that the oil has as far as temperature goes. So if you're going to heat up an oil, if you're going to use it to cook something, it's the temperature at which the oil starts to break down and start to smoke. So for example, extra virgin olive oil has a really low temperature for its smoking point. So you really can't sear with it, because when you do sear things, you typically want a really high temperature to caramelize the protein and to get that browning. Sunflower seed oil or grape seed oil have a really high smoking point, which make them perfect for searing because you can really push the oil to high temperatures to sear your proteins properly. So that's really smoking point. Now, as a general rule of thumb, it's pretty safe to assume that the lighter the oil is, the lighter the color of the oil is, the higher the smoking point. And the darker the oil is, the lower the smoking point. So extra virgin olive oil has a really rich and dark look to it, which makes it not so good for searing because it has a really low smoking point. And then on the other end of the spectrum, sunflower seed oil has a really light, almost clear look to it, which translates to a really high smoking point, and it's really good for searing. So that's kind of in a nutshell the basics of smoking point and the general rule of thumb for which oil's good for searing and high heat cooking with a higher smoking point tolerance. Okay, let's start off by talking about probably one of the most popular and Gordon Ramsay's favorite cooking oil, olive oil. Olive oil has many different health benefits. It's probably considered one of the more healthier cooking oils that you can reach for if you're definitely very heart conscious. Olive oil is really known for being a good heart healthy choice because it's loaded with monounsaturated fats, and it's actually loaded with antioxidants. But not all olive oil has the same characteristics. There's different grades of olive oil. For example, you'll find refined olive oil, which is better for high heat cooking or searing. And then you'll find virgin olive oil. Again, that's kind of a notch down as far as smoking point goes. It's not so great for searing, but still, worthy of cooking. And then extra virgin olive oil, which is the darkest, richest, and offers the most health benefits, but has a dramatically lower smoking point, and it's not very good for searing and sauteing. Refined olive oil has the highest smoking point at about 390 to maybe 470 degrees Fahrenheit. I've seen them around there, but typically it's right in the middle at 450 degrees. And then you have virgin olive oil, and the smoking point for virgin olive oil is right around 400 degrees, maybe 410 at the most. And then extra virgin olive oil, and there's many different types of extra virgin olive oil from all over the world, will be somewhere around 300 and maybe 370 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's about the smoking point for olive oil and the different grades of olive oil. Also, the prices will vary dramatically depending on what you're looking for. And sometimes you'll even see olive oil being blended or mixed with other things, different oils. And in general, I would say don't buy the blended stuff. Try to avoid blended olive oils and just try to stick to the organic, natural stuff. Olive oil is also made all over the world. You can find Spanish olive oil, Italian olive oil, Middle Eastern, Lebanese olive oil. They all taste fantastic, and it's really up to you to kind of decide which one you really like. I really enjoy Spanish or Italian cooking olive oil, and I tend to reach for Lebanese extra virgin olive oil. I tend to really like the flavors from that region. So what's olive oil good for? What are the pros and cons? Well, it's very, very flavorful, and you'll find it in kitchens all over the world. If you're just looking to saute and cook things, you don't want to use extra virgin olive oil. It's going to burn really, really quickly, smoke up your house, and it's going to tend to have this really rancid taste at the end because you burnt the olive oil. So you want to reach for regular olive oil, and the way that you can tell the difference is generally the clearer the olive oil is, the higher the smoking point. And the darker that it is, the more it's probably going to be used as an afterthought or as a dressing rather than something that you would cook with. Now, you can cook with extra virgin olive oil very, very lightly at very low temperatures as sort of like this finishing touch. Maybe when you turn off the stove and everything's kind of cooling off, you drizzle some olive oil. So if you're somebody that does not want a lot of flavor in the particular dish that you're, trying to cook, for example, maybe you have a dry aged ribeye or, something to that kind of nature where you really want to taste the meat and you really want to taste the differences in the dry age process, you may not want to use olive oil to cook or sear with it because that may infuse a flavor in there that you're not looking for. So you might reach for another oil that's a little bit more neutral. So olive oil is very flavorful and has a very rich profile, and it's very heart conscious and heart healthy with a lot of antioxidants. And I highly recommend olive oil for almost everybody. There's a reason why chefs all over the world use it. Okay, now let's talk about a really popular choice that has been gaining momentum in probably the last 5 or 10 years, and that's avocado oil. Avocado oil shares a lot of the health benefits that olive oil has. For example, it has a lot of monounsaturated fats, and it's really rich in antioxidants, so it's really good for your heart. So if you're definitely a health conscious person, or you have heart problems or high blood pressure, olive oil and avocado oil are really good choices. It's also a very stable oil with a high smoking point. You can find avocado oil that has a smoking point of 520 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a really high smoking point, even higher than sunflower seed oil or grape seed oil. Now, it also has a really flavorful taste to it. It's actually a very buttery taste that really enhances your food and your meals. And it's excellent as a dressing. You can add it as a salad dressing, or you can add a splash after you've done cooking to really enhance your meals and bring that buttery taste. So avocado oil is really popular for good reason. Now, the biggest con to avocado oil is it's pretty pricey, and the price keeps increasing almost every year. The good thing is though, 5-10 years ago, it was really hard to find it on the shelves of your local grocery stores. That's not the case anymore. I see avocado oil everywhere now, and you can even find it in bulk at like Costco or Trader Joe's and, you know, Sam's Club and those kind of places. So it's definitely gained popularity, but unfortunately, it's just like anything else, supply and demand. And it's kind of niche right now. There's not a lot of places that make avocado oil, although that's changing rapidly because everybody wants in on, you know, the money. But avocado oil is an excellent healthy choice, and it's very stable. So I highly recommend avocado oil. Okay, now let's talk about another really popular cooking oil, canola oil. Canola oil doesn't have a lot of the monounsaturated fats like olive oil or avocado oil may have, but it does have a decent amount. But some of the benefits of canola oil is that it does have polyunsaturated fats, which basically means omega-3s, which are really good for your heart. Now, canola oil does have a high smoking point, not as high as some of the other oils, but it may be a bit unstable. What I mean by that is, although it has a high smoking point, there are some studies that suggest when you are cooking at a high temperature for a long variation of time, you could be degrading the oil, and some of those polyunsaturated fats are now turning into saturated fats or trans fats that are bad for your heart or bad for your health in general. Now, those studies also seem to suggest that that little change is very small and insignificant. It may not really be that big of a deal. So that's just something to consider. Canola oil is readily available everywhere. You can find it at every grocery store out there, and it's actually pretty cheap. There's a lot of companies that make it, but I think a lot of people out there kind of consider it a jack of all trades oil, or at least something that you always kind of keep in your cupboard. Now, canola oil has a very mild or even a neutral taste to it. So it's definitely preferred for people that want to keep a neutrally balanced oil in there and let some of the other flavors shine. But it kind of tends to taste very fishy, especially as it ages and gets older because of the omega-3s. So it's definitely something that you want to store and take care of and throw out if you've had it for a long period of time. So if it starts kind of tasting fishy or smelling fishy, or just in general, it's not neutral anymore, it's time to toss it. Okay, now let's talk about one of my favorite frying cooking oils, and that's peanut oil. Hands down, anytime I'm deep frying anything, whether that's chicken or even turkey for Thanksgiving, I love using peanut oil. Peanut oil has a decent amount of unsaturated fats, and it's relatively healthy. I mean, in moderation. The problem with peanut oil is it's high in calories and can be a bit overpowering. I mean, there's different types of peanut oil and different types of concentrated peanut oil, but you can expect a light to mild nutty flavor to even a more pronounced nutty flavor. It all really depends on the concentrate that you get. Every year I go to Costco and buy a 5-gallon container of peanut oil, and I use that to deep fry our turkey for Thanksgiving. So peanut oil is really flavorful and really good for deep frying because it has a really high smoking point. Now, it goes without saying that if you have an allergy to peanuts or you don't tolerate peanuts very well, peanut oil is not very good for you, and you should avoid it because it's made out of peanuts and it will give you an allergic reaction if you are allergic to peanuts. Also, it tends to be a little bit harder to digest, so if you are a little bit stomach sensitive, peanut oil can be excessive and, may upset your stomach if you eat it a lot. But it is a very heavy calorie and rich, high smoking point oil that works amazingly for deep frying. Okay, now let's talk about coconut oil. Coconut oil gained popularity about 10 years ago, where everyone that I knew was suddenly really into it. Now, although coconut oil does present some health benefits, they're kind of small and the pros don't necessarily outweigh the cons. The problem with coconut oil is it contains a lot of saturated fats, and unfortunately, saturated fats are not too good for your heart. Now, one of the biggest pros of coconut oil is it's very stable as far as a cooking platform. It has a pretty decent smoking point and it's great for sauteing. I wouldn't push it too aggressively, and generally it can be found anywhere. Now, coconut oil tends to be kind of on the medium scale as far as price is concerned, and you'll actually see a lot of coconut oil being branded and sold as spray-on cooking oil. Its popularity has sort of decreased over the years, and also it has a pretty pronounced taste. I mean, it's gonna taste like coconuts, so there's not a lot of uses for it, and generally speaking, if you're cooking proteins and stuff like that, coconut oil doesn't necessarily mix too great. I have seen it being used a lot in baking and just specific scenarios where you want to induce that coconut taste. Okay, now let's move on to another really popular and very readily available oil: vegetable oil. Vegetable oil could be made really in two separate ways, either 100% soybean or a blend and mixture of several different oils like canola oil or sunflower seed oil. Vegetable oil recently has gotten a really bad rap because research is still ongoing, but it seems like it has a very high concentration of omega-6s, which could cause inflammation and generally speaking is not very healthy for you. So vegetable oil may not have the best health benefits, but it is a fairly stable oil as far as being used for many different things. It's very popular in the baking world. It's not very good for deep frying. I would not use vegetable oil for deep frying, although it does have a relatively high smoking point, but it is pretty high in polyunsaturated fats, which generally means that over duration of high heat, it may break down and degrade. So, vegetable oil is a jack of all trades oil, but it's not necessarily the most versatile oil as far as being able to do high heat searing or high temperatures for a very long time. One of my favorite stir fry oils is sesame seed oil. Sesame seed oil is sort of kind of in the middle ground for heart healthiness. It's loaded in poly and mono unsaturated fats. There's really two types of sesame seed oil. There's toasted sesame seed oil, which is very flavorful, very concentrated, and a little goes a long ways. And then there's regular sesame seed oil, which is great for stir frying and has a higher smoking point. So toasted sesame seed oil, think of it as an afterthought, something that you add maybe a teaspoon of to really enhance the dish. And then regular sesame seed oil is something that you cook with, you saute or stir fry with. I love using sesame seed oil for all of my Asian stir fry dishes, and I use regular sesame seed oil for the cooking process to actually do the stir fry. And then I always at the end add sometimes a tablespoon, but mostly a teaspoon of toasted sesame seed oil to really enhance the flavor profile. It is also a high calorie oil, so that's something to kind of consider, but it's absolutely delicious. Let's talk about corn oil. Corn oil can be found anywhere. It's very cheap and inexpensive and has a really high smoking point. The problem with corn oil is it's loaded in omega-6, which is not very heart conscious or healthy for you. I think corn oil is very flexible and generally has some good cooking performance, but it's probably not the most healthy choice out there for you. And it definitely has a pronounced taste to it. It's there, you're not gonna miss it. Corn oil was probably one of the most famous oils back in the day, but generally speaking, nowadays, we've done more research on it and we've realized that there's better things out there. So in a nutshell, that's corn oil. Another oil that's really high in omega-6 is grapeseed oil. Unfortunately, grapeseed oil may not be the most health conscious choice for you out there. I used to use it a lot because it had really high smoking point and it was great for searing. I also liked its really mild, almost neutral flavor. So grapeseed oil is very versatile. It has a high smoking point. It's pretty stable, but unfortunately it's loaded with omega-6s. The smoking point for grapeseed oil is somewhere around 450 degrees. That's usually where you can find it. It's very comparable to sunflower seed oil, and I used to have it all the time in my cabinet. But generally speaking, we really don't buy it anymore. Sunflower seed oil has kind of taken care of our high heat searing for us. And as far as cost ratio, it's pretty comparable to sunflower seed oil. So we really didn't see much benefit for us to keep buying grapeseed oil, especially when sunflower seed oil was basically at the same price. And finally, one of my favorite cooking oils, and I always keep it in my cabinets, sunflower seed oil. Now, not all sunflower seed oils are made the same, and typically the regular sunflower seed oils are really high in polyunsaturated fats, which means they degrade over a long variation of time at high heat cooking. So they're not the best as far as smoking point or searing, and they can kind of taste a bit rancid. They're also not the most heart healthy. Now, with that being said, I highly recommend oleic sunflower seed oil, which is a bit more refined, but it contains more of the monounsaturated fats, raising the smoking point of the oil, making it a bit more stable. It's definitely important that you really concentrate on which sunflower seed oil you're buying. So sunflower seed oil has a very neutral taste. It's very balanced. So specifically, if you're looking for an oil that's going to take a back seat and let all the other flavors shine through and really just perform for you, sunflower seed oil is a really good choice. Oleic sunflower seed oil usually has a smoking point of 450 degrees, which makes it a really good candidate for high heat temperatures and high heat searing. Okay, let's talk about things to avoid and some first-time beginner mistakes. I think in general, beginners or first-time buyers, the number one mistake that they make is when they go to their local grocery store and they buy the wrong type of olive oil. And a really famous chef that I think goes by the name of Gordon Ramsay, I have no idea who that is, really loves using olive oil. Well, the thing to remember is, especially in cooking and searing and sauteing, when you see him using it, he's not using extra virgin olive oil. So a lot of people out there, especially first-time cooks, they hear about all the great benefits of extra virgin olive oil. They watch their favorite cooking show, or they go on YouTube and they watch one of the greatest chefs of all time, and they think, well, extra virgin olive oil, I've been hearing all these great things about it. He's using olive oil, it must be the same thing. And they go out and they buy the most expensive extra virgin olive oil that they can find. They try to cook with it. It completely smokes up their house. It begins to degrade. It begins to taste really rancid and nasty. And then they're really just put off by cooking in general. So research goes a long way. And I think that's the number one mistake that new beginners make. And likewise, I think another common mistake is just buying and sticking to one type of oil and just having that in your cabinet. It's important to be flexible. I would buy extra virgin olive oil, keep that in your cabinet as a dressing, something that you add to your dish after it's done cooking. Get some regular olive oil or just virgin olive oil and use that for sauteing and some cooking for that health conscious meal. And then maybe buying sunflower seed oil and having that as your sear king, something that you would use for a neutral taste in a dish where you really want the other flavors to be more pronounced, or for steaks. It's important to kind of invest in different oils. And it also all depends on the health benefits that you're specifically looking for. Like I said, you might keep peanut oil and only use it occasionally for deep frying, or you might really love avocado oil and you swear by it and that's all you use. That's okay, but cooking is all about variations and really experimenting with the cooking process, with the taste process, and how everything balances or enhances one another. So oil plays a really important role in that. Another big mistake that I see people making is buying spray-on oil. Anything in a can in general is not something that you should, be reaching for every single time. But spray-on oil is something that you would use for, baking or maybe like barbecuing to, spray the grates or something like that. But it's not generally used for, pan frying, pan searing. Just get regular oil for that. Spray-on oil oftentimes is advertised as non-stick and, the best thing that's ever happened to anybody. That's not always the case. It's very limited, and go get the good stuff that's in a bottle, preferably in a glass bottle. Another big mistake that I see people doing is using way too much oil or way too little oil when they're cooking their food. Generally speaking, portions, right? Learning your portions and what you're cooking and how much of it that you're cooking is really important. So if you're cooking a lot, there's a lot going on in your pan, there's a lot of materials going in there, add more oil. The other side of things is you might be sauteing some onions and you put like 5 tablespoons of oil in there. That's completely unnecessary. Unless you're deep frying the onions, it makes absolutely no sense. So that's something that you're just gonna have to learn on your own. It's something that just naturally develops as you get more experienced with cooking. And finally, the last mistake, and this kind of goes back to just picking one oil and not diversifying, but many new beginners will make the mistake of thinking that there's one oil that's perfect for everything, which is not true. Every single oil that I presented to you guys today has its specific pros and its cons, whether that's for cooking or for health reasons. And there's a whole bunch more that I just didn't mention. I mean, if I wanted to go through every single cooking oil out there, this video would be 3 hours long. So, you know, there's more choices out there. My point is, go out, research things. They all have their place in the kitchen. Okay, so now, what are my favorite oils and what do I use in the kitchen? Well, hands down, probably one of the most popular oils that we use is olive oil. We have a lot of olive oil. I have extra virgin Lebanese olive oil for that finishing touch that I just love, right? It's very healthy, and we're not always making these delicious meals every night like the videos may suggest. I mean, we do try to keep, you know, in moderation, and that's another important thing. Everything in moderation. Olive oil is really healthy for you. It's not very healthy for you if you chug the whole bottle down, right? And then as far as high heat searing, or in general when I'm cooking my dry aged steaks where I really don't want anything to interrupt the flavor profile of the steak that I'm eating, I tend to reach for sunflower seed oil. Sunflower seed oil is kind of my preferred searing slash steak oil. And again, that's oleic sunflower seed oil. It has a high smoking point, 450 degrees, and we absolutely love it for our steak dishes. And then as far as like seasoning my cast iron or my carbon steel skillets, if you guys haven't already, go watch my video where I show you guys how to season a carbon steel or cast iron skillet. I actually re-seasoned a skillet for a family member that had some rust. I have a video on that where I show you guys how to remove some rust. And then I also did a full video on 2 methods that really do season your skillet really, really well. And for both of those videos, I use sunflower seed oil. So sunflower seed oil is also my seasoning oil that I use pretty frequently. And for stir frying, I exclusively use sesame seed oil. And we always add a splash of toasted sesame seed oil at the end to really enhance that delicious flavor. I really love sesame seed oil. I know there's some people out there that just hate the taste, but I think it's absolutely delicious. And then for deep frying, we use peanut oil. Peanut oil is delicious. I love it. I feel like it gives a very rich flavor, especially for chicken and turkey. Most of the time now, we use our air fryer. I mean, that's what I bought it for, to kind of limit those deep frying events for the old ticker, right? So yeah, oils that I generally avoid are grapeseed oil now, although that was my preferred high smoking point steak oil, you know, at an earlier time. And we never do corn oil. I just don't see any benefits to corn oil. Vegetable oil, same thing. We really don't buy vegetable oil. An oil that surprisingly I haven't used very often, or at least I haven't, you know, kept in the cabinet. Avocado oil is definitely gaining popularity. I have some friends that are saying, hey, it's the new olive oil, right? There's just too much benefit to it. And I do like that buttery taste, that buttery profile that it gives. So I don't know, maybe I'll invest in some avocado oil and we'll see. In my cabinet, I welcome all newcomers as long as it doesn't kill me. That's it from me, guys. I hope you found this video informative. Check out some of my other videos and I will catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Hey everybody, how'd you guys like that last video? Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified on my next video. And if you can, please share with your family and friends. I would really appreciate it. Here's some more content that I think you guys are really gonna enjoy. Check them out. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.